Hi, welcome back. We're going to read Summer of the Woods chapter 2 today. I hope you like the beginning of our book. I'm pretty interested. I really like mysteries. So, we left off chapter 1 where they had found a coin, or not they, but let's see, Sam found a coin in the creek, and then he looked up and he couldn't find his brother Derek anywhere. And his eyes rested on the hill of pines and what appeared to be an enormous rock. And that's where we left off. So, chapter 2 is called The Boulder. Do you know what a boulder is? A boulder is a large rock. It's a synonym for rock. So, here we go. Derek walked up the hill while Sam fooled around in the water and blabbered about snakes. He ducked past a prickly thorn bush that grabbed at his shirt and moved into a dark shadow. Above him loomed an enormous boulder, the size of a dump truck. Okay, so you got a visual in your mind? That's a really large rock. The boulder was covered with moss and leaves on small ledges that jutted here and there up its sides. Derek pulled back a group of branches, and as he did, he noticed something written on the rock. He leaned down and brushed the section off with his hands, revealing a small plaque, which is like a little thing that has words on it, laid into the stone like a sign. In large block letters was written Virginia Mining Company, no trespassing. You guys know what no trespassing means? Yeah, can't go through there. Here's a little illustration of the sign. Derek jumped and turned his head only to find Sam peering up at him. "What are you doing?" Sam demanded, a cross expression on his face. "I want to see what's up there." "Look what I found in the creek." Sam took the coin out of his pocket. "Look how the back of it is different than usual. I think it's old." Derek held the coin up to the light. "Wow, that's pretty cool." He handed it back to Sam and then pointed down to the plaque. "Check out what I found on this boulder." "Virginia Mining Company," Sam read. "Mining? Like gold mine?" "I doubt it. We'll have to ask Dad if he knows." My cat Raven decided to come join us. You want to see her? Hi, Raven. She's cute. She's a sweet cat. "I don't think we should be up here, Derek. No trespassing means keep out, I think." "Nah, this is really old. We're fine." Derek scrambled up the remaining ledges and out of sight. Sam eyed the dozens of tiny crevices all around him. Snakes could be lurking anywhere. "Wait for me," he called, and carefully followed Derek's path up the rock. It was a tough climb, but soon he reached a flat area at the top. He stood and glanced at the beautiful view. Clouds drifted over the thick forest. He spotted Derek spread flat on his stomach at the far edge of the rock. He seemed to be watching something in the valley below. "What are you looking at?" Sam crouched next to his brother and stretched his neck over the edge. It was much farther down than where they'd climbed up. It was a cliff, maybe 50 feet to the bottom. Way too steep to hike down. Sam instinctively scooted back a few inches. Derek waved his hand. "Get down!" "What is it?" "Shh." Derek reached into his backpack for the binoculars and fumbled with the lens dials. "Whoa," he whispered, perched on his elbows. "Look at that." "Let me see. What is it?" Derek didn't answer. "Let me see," Sam repeated, yanking the binoculars from Derek's hands. He pointed them at the base of the cliff, but saw only branches. He was just about to ask his brother what the big deal was when he heard a noise below him. Sam turned the binoculars toward the sound. He caught a glimpse of something running through the branches, a patch of black. "What was that?" "I don't know, because you took the binoculars. Give them back." Derek snatched the lenses away from Sam's face. Sam blinked and stared back down over the cliff. Now he saw two boys walking around at the base of the rocks. They looked to be about the same age as he and Derek, maybe a little older. One pushed a wheelbarrow, the other carried bundles of sticks over to a small structure amidst the trees that looked like a fort. Then they disappeared from view at the base of the boulder, like they were going in and out of a crevice or cave in the rock. Who is that, Derek? I don't know, but I want to move a little closer to see what they're doing. You stay here. Sam shook his head. No way. I think we should get out of here. What do you think they should do? What would you do? But Derek's left foot was already dangling over the edge. He carefully climbed down at an angle toward a clump of bushes on the next ledge. As he found his foot, a piercing beep, beep, beep suddenly interrupted the silence. The stopwatch alarm their dad had strapped to his backpack. Startled, or scared, Derek lost his balance. A cascade of loose gravel scattered down the rock face. He slid several feet down the slope, crashing into the rough branches of the bush. His arm banged against the rock, sending a sharp pain through his body. Derek! Sam yelled, standing to see where his brother had fallen. The beeping watch and Sam's yell caught the attention of the boys at the bottom of the hill. They turned and stared up at the boulder's peak. Derek frantically pressed buttons on the watch, but the beeping only seemed to grow louder. He finally gave up, but as he stood from below the bush, he came into full view of the boys below. Hey, you! One of them shouted. Derek glimpsed a blur of huge black fur and heard a terrible sounding growl. Bear! Get back here! The other boy called and ran into the trees. Derek clawed his way up to Sam at the summit and then peered back over the edge. The black blur had vanished, but the growling seemed to grow closer. Let's get out of here, Derek called as he turned and dashed across the top of the boulder. But Sam just stood frozen. He stared at the cliff as if the new boys, or a bear would appear at any moment. Sam, run! Derek spun back and tugged his brother's arm, practically pulling him down the rock staircase. They tore past the line of trees and down the slope as fast as they could. Shouts echoed behind them, but they didn't dare turn around and look. Instead, they splashed right into the creek, not worrying about snakes or finding a stone to leap across. Stop! They heard in the distance, but the brothers continued east along the creek toward home. Their sneakers and clothes were drenched, full of water. Sharp branches and leaves smacked them in the face and in the arms. Derek's elbow burned from where he'd banged it against the rock, and Sam had a cramp in his side that made him feel like he was going to throw up. But they didn't stop. They just kept running. When they finally reached the section of creek that ran behind their house, the growling and yelling had stopped. They recognized the spot where the trees parted and the green grass of their backyard began. They charged up the slope and around to the cover of their front yard, gasping for breath. As they jumped up the porch steps, their mom opened the door. The two boys nearly knocked her over as they spilled across the threshold, dirty and dripping wet. They immediately began babbling about attackers with bears and nearly being killed, but they weren't making much sense. When their mom noticed blood on Derek's elbow, she ordered them both out onto the deck to take off their wet shoes and clothes while she found the disinfectant and a bandage for his arm. The boys didn't have the strength to argue, so they headed out the back door onto the elevated deck. Neither spoke as they sat and removed the muddy shoes that clung to their wet socks like suction cups. Both just stared off into the distance, replaying in their minds what had happened, their hearts still beating fast. Sam picked up his shoes and walked over to the railing. He pulled off his wet shirt and hung it over the wood. He felt in his pocket for the coin he had found in the creek and was glad to see it was still there. Derek looked down over the yard to where the trail began in the woods and gasped, which is like when you go, oh. Sam saw his brother's pale face. What's wrong? Derek didn't answer. But when Sam followed his brother's stare into the woods, his heart sank. Under the branches loomed a dark shadow, a pair of menacing eyes peered out from the trees. Okay, come over here, you two. I found the box with the first aid kit, their mom announced triumphantly. She opened the back door and walked out onto the deck with antiseptic and bandages in her hand. Her voice startled them, and both boys nearly jumped out of their skin. Mom, shh! They shrieked and ducked behind the railing. What's wrong? She asked, walking next to them. Look, whispered Sam, hiding behind his hanging wet shirt. Their mom raised her eyebrows in confusion. Look at what? By the woods. Over there. Sam pointed at the trail. But when he peeked up and looked out at the woods to show her, nothing was there. Another cliffhanger for you. What do you think it is? What do you think's there by the woods? I kind of have some inferences about what it could be based on what they just saw in the woods, but I don't quite understand what those other kids were doing in the woods. I don't know. We'll have to keep reading, but that's all for now.